There's three laws I want to look at in closing. Law of connection. Law of connection is a law from John Maxwell. These three laws are from John Maxwell's teaching, and this simply says, leaders touch a heart before they ask for a hand. And it has another law. It's the law of pain. And it simply says this: good management of bad experiences leads to great growth. Pain is inevitable, but growth is optional. One becomes bitter, the other becomes better. The difference is not the pain, it's how it's processed. Pain can either shape you or shut you down. And there's the law of communication. A lot of you have heard this story, and I want to end with this story. We talked last week when I was 4 years old, and I had the broken leg because my father ran over my leg with a tractor. And I had this cast that was on my leg for 8 weeks. The wall, the crutch, the thing that was around protecting, I needed that. I needed that to get fixed. But it ended up weakening my leg. 30 years later, I found myself, and a lot of you know this story, I found myself trapped in another wall crutch, whatever you want to say. 2008, my father passed away. And I didn't want to face the pain that I had to go through of missing one of my best friends, a father who had become more than just a father, became a friend. And seeing the trauma, seeing the van, seeing the things that I saw, I didn't want to deal with that. And so I became addicted to these pills that were offered to me for a whole year. And I took one pill after another pill after another pill. And suddenly, after a year of being on these pills, it started to affect my family life. It started to affect my marriage. It started to affect me as a father. And I started taking notice. What is going on? What is happening? And so I made the choice to get off of them. Because the law of connection, I didn't feel like God was reaching my heart. And I was going through pain. And the law of communication is I need to hear from you, God. The fear, the anxiety, the pain of coming off of these pills made my thinking irrational. One day, I was like, God, I was scared I was dying. I was scared I was dying, and you couldn't convince me otherwise. And one day I just simply asked God, I said, God, you've got to give me something. You've got to give me just something from your word. And so I've heard many times how people have opened up their passage of Scripture and it's fell to a verse, and it's been what changed their life. And I remember doing that. And I opened up to Isaiah 57, verse 1, and it says, "Why do good people die before their time?" And I remember looking at that. And I remember looking up. I actually looked up, and I said, God, you're going to have to do better than that. And I shut my Bible. But here's what happened in that moment. Let me share with you what happened in that moment. What happened in that moment is God knows how I communicate through humor, through wit. And God told me, I felt all three of those right there. The law of connection, law of pain, law of communication. Right there was a starting point of getting rid of the stronghold. There was a satanic stronghold through my lineage, through history, through way back that we won't even talk about. But right there was the beginning. Because of the law of connection, because he told me, he told me this. He spoke my language. It's a law of communication. He said, I'm here. I have you. Don't worry about it. I think you're acting ridiculous. And he sent me a verse that if you weren't me, you'd probably think, oh my goodness, I'm going to die. But it was specifically for me because that's how our Father is. He communicates. Stand to your feet.